Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. And my online business did have a plan. Make as much money as possible while letting me surf every day. And it worked until it didn't. You see, COVID gave us a huge advantage. It normalized online education, and we took advantage of that, producing an online productivity course that made $1.4 million over 13 cohorts. And it worked beautifully until it all came crashing down. In this video, I'll share with you how it all went down. I'll show you the inner workings of the creator economy, and yes, how you can build a super scalable business if you love online marketing and you're willing to specialize in one niche. I'll share with you the devastating layoffs and how it shattered my confidence, and how we were able to pivot and stay in the game for my 9th year as an entrepreneur. But first, let me take you back. If we haven't met yet, my name is Khe Hy. I'm the founder and CEO of RadReads. I'm the child of first-generation Cambodian immigrants from New York City, and I studied my butt off and worked on Wall Street for 15 years. In 2015, I quit on a whim and became an accidental entrepreneur. I meandered writing a newsletter, coaching, consulting, even being an entrepreneur in residence, until I finally found my footing at the end of 2019. That's when I started teaching my first productivity workshops. I remember turning to my wife, Lisa, and saying, "Damn, babe, this is so easy. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. Everything we touch turns to gold." I spun up a little one-off workshop on getting things done. It made like 15 grand. We would launch these cohorts, and they were subsequently getting more and more money. The course was somewhere between like $500 and $2,000, depending on the edition. But I remember the first one was 5 grand. The second one was 15 grand. The third one was like 25 grand, something like that. And again, keep in mind that this was all me doing it on my own, right? I had no training in any of this. I am an accidental entrepreneur. I did not, when I left Wall Street, I thought I was going to putz around and go back and get a job. And here we are almost 9 years later, telling this story. So I won't go too deep into the COVID part, but to make a long story short, 2020, 2021 were really, really good years. We made about 225,000 in net income, like pre-tax income. And then the revenue was going up. I think it was like 300 one year, 450 the next year. And so interesting though, those who have an acute ear might notice that, wow, you weren't actually, your margins were shrinking, right? And that's something that we'll come back to. But basically up in that COVID period and the period right after, it was like shooting fish in the barrel. I thought I was a genius. I thought I was going to scale this productivity business, courses business in the world of internet marketing. It's called information products. And the reason why people love these products, they have so much scale, right? If you build an online course, once you build it, if you sell it to one person or 100 people, your costs don't change. So it's a highly, highly, highly leveraged product. So that was the period around COVID. And then here was my first fuck up. You speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, and what many entrepreneurs will tell you, they'll say, always be hiring the team that you want in a year or 2 years. So now we're in 2021, and they're saying, hire the team that you want in 2 years. So again, Dumb K is like, oh, entrepreneurship's so fucking easy. We're going to be a multi-million-dollar business. And we'll come back to that, because I never was trying to do something so scaly. I was just trying to enjoy my life. So that business so I start to hire, because everyone is doing this. I talk to people at the biggest streaming companies, at the biggest e-commerce companies, gaming companies. Everyone basically took the revenue lines from 2020, 21, 22, where it was the Goldilocks economy for basically anyone except for physical retail. right? Everyone was at home. People were bored. People were discovering Zoom for the first time. People were craving community. Stimulus checks were flowing. In hindsight, we're like, of course, social media platforms are going to kick ass in that period. Of course, online courses are going to kick. But no, I said to myself, you must be so smart, Khe. This is all a product of your hard work and all the business books that you read and all the business podcasts that you listen to. You are one special fucking snowflake, okay? And so I extrapolated the line to, in my mind, I'm like, oh, we're going to be a 2 million, we're making 400-ish thousand in revenue. We're going to be a multi-million-dollar business if we just take this line forward. And so I hired. I had just a VA before. I hired two product managers. I hired marketing person. I hired an operations person. And we set up a consulting business and we tried to create digital products and all of that stuff. And it was all it was going, it was moving along. And then 2023 hit. So I want to rewind that was the big fucking punch in the face. So 2022, the cracks were starting to show. And again, if I had been paying attention to our margins in 2022, we did 645,000 in revenue and 250,000 in pre-tax. But we had done 200,000 in pre-tax the 2 previous years on way less revenue. So our margins were getting slammed. That was one thing. But again, we were building this team, and at the end of the year, at the end of last year, 2022, I said to I did something I was extremely proud of. I got a PEO, which is basically JustWorks for those of you who aren't familiar. It basically lets small businesses act like big businesses. So we had a PEO. There was a lot of expense to set that up. We were still quite small for that, but it was really, really, really important for me to get healthcare for my team. Because as someone who was a solo entrepreneur, whose wife is not in corporate America, healthcare access sucks, and then the healthcare that you get sucks, and it's very, very expensive. For context, our healthcare, we have a high deductible plan, which means that we have to pay for the first $16,000 of anything, is about $1,600 a month per person for the family. So that's after tax, right? So our healthcare is 16 times 12. It's like 100. It's like $18,000 a year out of the gates, just to play the game of entrepreneurship. 18, whatever that math turns out to be. So I really wanted to give my team, and it's very hard to get. I really wanted to give my team access to healthcare, access to a 401k. We didn't match, and so even though the business was starting to crack in 2022, I was so proud. So make this big announcement, give the team healthcare. Everyone goes away for the holidays. And then in January of this year, January of 2023, it's the best month for productivity courses, anything self-improvement. We launch our course. It's supposed to be our best cohort ever, best time of the year. We put so much effort into the marketing, and it tanks. I think that product did 30,000, where we were conservatively estimating 100, and in the past it had done 150. So from a peak of 150 to 30, that's how fast it dropped. And all of a sudden, I had a massive cash flow problem. I had all these salaries, all these benefits. That money was supposed to last us for the next 3 to 6 months, because we are a seasonal business in that regard. And so I had to make the extremely hard decision of laying off. We were a total of 6, and we laid off 50% of the team, 3 people. So just imagine that feeling like in mid-December, you announce benefits and healthcare and all that. I think it was like 35 days later or 45 days later, you lay the person off. And keep in mind, RadReads is not, Google or anything like that. People were taking risks to bet on me. They were getting married. They were single parents. And they saw something in me. They saw something in what we were building that they wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to take a risk. And we were paid fairly, but we definitely paid below market from what those people could get at, more established companies. And God, I have had to lay people off when I worked in corporate, but in corporate, when you lay someone off, it's it's the big bad Goldman Sachs, it's the big bad Citibank, whoever. Here, it's like everyone knows it's you, right? You made the decision, you're delivering the news. It's cash that you said you were going to pay us. You said you're going to earn on our behalf, and it sucked. It fucking sucked, and I'm still embarrassed by it, like the speed at which it happened. I tried to do right by everyone. We did 3 months of severance, which we didn't have the cash for that, but we did because I wanted it to be fair. I still coach many of those firm employees, so I wanted to let go of team members in the most dignified, human, fair way, because I've always wanted to build a company in a way that is not like the bloodthirsty capitalist hungry ghosts of Wall Street. So that was the collapse in early of 2023. And if I confess to you, it really shook me. I think that I was really, a few things. One, there was just the personal loss and the sadness that I felt for the people that I had to let go. That was one. The second was my ego. Here I was thinking that I was the fucking next world's greatest entrepreneur, and I was humbled. I know I'm not the only one, but I was fucking humbled by that collapse, right? And it really goes to show that timing, luck, seasons. You could start that company we started the company like in earnest during the best possible environment. So I was embarrassed. My ego took a big hit. And to be honest, my confidence was just destroyed, right? I didn't know what to do. We had a product that was, it was a great product, and many of you listening have taken the product. It had the NPS score was like similar to Apple's. The refund rate was under 5%. It was a $2,000 product by the end. The community still hangs out. It was a fucking awesome product, but the demand wasn't there. Keep in mind that what was happening at the beginning of 2023, interest rates rising, stock markets tanking, no one can sell their home. Quiet quitting went from quiet quitting to quiet staying. People were just holding on to their jobs for dear life. And as we record this in December of 2023, you're just starting to see the sentiment turn. So I was just knocked out. I was demoralized. And the one employee who remains, my one colleague, Marion Noble, really, kudos to her, because she helped, navigate this kind of really dark, morose period. I was super indecisive. I didn't want to, we'll come back to this period. I didn't want to work on anything. I kind of didn't want to own a company anymore. I wanted to go back to just being by myself. I kind of missed the old days. But we still put one foot in front of the other, and kudos to Marion for being an anchor through this. Another thing I want to point out is there's a lot of bullshit about how people on the internet make money. a lot of bullshit about how people on the internet make money. And that's why I share the numbers so transparently, so that you know that what? For 4 years, Khe made $150,000 total, right? I mean, I wasn't building a business. I was someone with a lot of savings having fucking fun. Right. And so I want people to recognize that, there was a time when I built a business, and this business has always been subsidized by my Wall Street earnings. Right. So, uh, so that's why I want to paint this picture. But going back to the bullshit about the internet businesses. So a lot of people come to me, and a lot of people listening to this, they see myself, they see others like, oh my God, you guys build these huge internet audiences, these followings. Some of it is on Twitter, some of you do it on LinkedIn, some have email newsletters, podcasts, whatever. And it's like, oh, that this is the dream job. And I just want to pour a little cold water on all that. I mean, that's why I'm sharing this, is that the first thing that people don't realize when it comes to some kind of scalable digital product like a course or even writing a book. Yes, you need to have a good book, decent book. Yes, you need to have a decent course. But that's not where you spend the majority of your time. The majority of your time is spent on marketing. Marketing, everything from like podcasting, newsletters, social media, YouTube videos, all of that. That is all marketing, copywriting, sales pages, email launch sequences, free events, Facebook ads. All the when I got into the course business, one of my mentors said, he's like, "Hey, just so you know, every time we launch a course, we have a Google Doc with all the marketing assets." You know how many pages that Google Doc was? This coach told me 86 pages. So to sell one online course, you had 86 pages of marketing. That's probably 100,000 words. And by the way, when you're a one-person business, someone has to write those 100,000 words, right? So I think that the first lie that is being sold to a lot of people is just share what you know. Teach your passion. If you love cooking, start a cooking class. If you are passionate about raising kids a certain way, write a book about that, right? Sure, that's important. It is. I am not downplaying the importance of expertise. However, what no one tells you is you need to market the fuck out of all that stuff, right? And this is something you see in traditional publishing, is that you go to a traditional publisher now and they're like, how big's your audience? What's your marketing plan? Yes, they want to know that you have an original idea, but they want to know, is influencer X going to blurb your book, right? They need to know the marketing. And from what I've heard, a lot of traditional publishers are way behind the ball on marketing. They don't understand things like book talk and different channels to get awareness, Substack, different channels to get awareness to your book. So if you are listening to this and you're like, yeah, the thing that's missing for me is to build an audience so that I can then monetize that audience. I just want you to know that there are countless people in my position that have audiences that are bigger, that are smaller, that are making way less money. There was a Linktree study. I think it said 99% of creators make under, I think it's $50,000. Don't quote me on the numbers, but it was basically 99% of people trying to make a living online make under 45 grand, or a very, very low number. So remember, if you want to do that, it's marketing, tons and tons of marketing, tons of copyright. And to be honest, I'm good at marketing, but I don't like it. I would rather just I would rather do this podcast. This is like brand awareness, but marketing that gets people to buy stuff, that's called conversion-based marketing. It's like getting people to take action. That stuff is really, really, it can also be very, very manipulative. The other thing that was happening in that moment was, look, I've been doing this for 9 years. Productivity, self-improvement, self-help, whatever you want to call it, it's an easy niche to start in because it's very, people love the candy, right? Cold showers and iPhone hacks and grayscale on your screen and weekly reviews and keyboard shortcuts. People fucking eat that shit up. People love it. I love it, right? Who's with me? You see that article? It's BuzzFeed style. It's like the 6 things Warren Buffett does despite being a billionaire. We all click that story and like, what is the 6 things? He drinks a Diet Coke every day. It's like stupid fucking bullshit like that. But we fall for it. We definitely fall for it. And so a lot of people enter the internet, and myself included, through productivity. Here's the thing. I've told you that productivity, it's hard to sell, right? You're going to sell a $99 course, you need a fucking huge audience. You're going to sell a $2,000 course, you need a medium-sized audience. You need to be damn good at marketing. You want to sell a $10 book, you need to be cross multi-channel, right? So it's a very, very, it's a very competitive game. We've established that. But the other thing about getting into the self-help, self-improvement, self-help category is that at some point you'll want to get out, right? One idea that I've really been sitting with is being a multi-decade creator, right? I want to do this, right? One of our new taglines is build a life you don't need to take a vacation from. And I would modify that and say, build a life you don't need to retire from, right? And so I need my source of fuel, which is my curiosity, my interest, to evolve with me, right? Yeah, at 35, I cared a lot about to-do lists. Now I don't give a fuck. 45, I got a kid that's starting to ask for an iPhone. I got bigger fish to fry. I soon shall have a boyfriend in a couple of years, right? I got bigger fish to fry than what to-do list app I'm using right now. And so here's the thing about, and then we'll get away from internet businesses, but I know that many of you are intrigued by internet businesses and you want to start internet businesses, and you look at folks like myself and all the others and you're like, oh, I want that. And it's a great life, but you need to see the other side. So here's the other thing. So everyone will often say, if you're going to start on the internet, to niche down. So if you're really helping women who have ADHD, who want to be more productive, like, go hard on that. And it works because that way you talk to that person. You're very specific. You understand their problem, right? A woman who has ADHD who wants to be better at productivity is very different than a college student that's thinking about approaching time management, and it's very different than an executive that needs help managing their calendar and the deluge of email and a startup. You get the point, right? So you start with this niche, and it's really good advice to start with this niche. But what happens is that at some point you outgrow the niche. And so then you're faced with a dilemma, right? You're faced with a dilemma where you basically pretend like you still care about that niche because you work so hard to establish it, right? We worked really hard to establish ourselves as productivity. I mean, we always had this philosophical element, thank God. But yeah, there was a stretch where I wrote Notion posts for 8 straight months. So thank you for those who were like, dude, stop writing about Notion. This shit's boring, right? Notion's a great app, but you writing about it's pretty boring. So you niche down, but then you're at this crossroads. And this is I'll bring it back to us. We were at this crossroads, like productivity, I kind of over it. You've heard the episodes about that, and this other stuff. So when we were at that juncture, I feel like it was a blessing that everything collapsed so fast, because I basically burned the motherfucker down. I was like, with the exception of the newsletter, I'm like, let's keep doing the newsletter, and that's it, right? And I said, I'm not going to write about productivity. I made a few videos, a podcast. And dude, let me tell you, the number of people that have DM'd me, sent me private messages that are like, kudos to you for doing it. I don't have the balls to do that. I can never, I'm way too scared. I need the money. So it's an interesting conundrum. Again, it's like, how do you become a prison? How do you create your own personal jail? Right? And I think that's something that all of us need to be really, really mindful of. A prison of your own making. Have you created a prison of your own making? What are ways that we create a prison of our own making? We do things for money, and then the money gets really good. That's a very common one. Other prisons of our own making. Status games, keeping up with the Joneses, needing to always have the newest X, Y, Z. Other ways, tying our identities too hard to a certain thing. I'm so being an influencer, being an MD, being a serial entrepreneur, right? Prison of your own making. So I ask you to really consider, where have you created a prison of your own making? Right. And I do actually feel really lucky. For me, the prison was productivity and having to do all that fucking marketing. Right. I really hate it. And I didn't even want to talk about how the marketing is also, if you do it well, it's usually there's some kind of manipulation to it. Okay. So that took us through the summer. Layoffs, small team, and demoralized Khe. And this phase was a phase that I refer to as groundlessness. And this is from the spiritual teacher, Pema Chodron. You've heard Carl Richards, another guest of ours, talk about this. But I was so lost, right? And the ground was shaking. I didn't know what to hold on to. I had an employee that was looking at me saying, hey, what do you want me to do? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even want to be on this meeting right now because I don't know what to do. And this is stressful. And I kind of am in this prison of this own making, but I also have this confidence at the same time that we have something special here, right? We have something. You guys have seen the notes, the messages. We have something special here, right? We built an incredible community. People are really making changes in their lives. It's fucking beautiful to see. And so, I've always known that we have something, but it's one thing to know that you have something special. It's another thing to make money and put food on the table. So the summer was a period of groundlessness. I want to give you this metaphor. It's a surfing metaphor of a big wave. So a big wave comes to you and slams you. There's so much water going. Let's say it's like a head high wave. So 6 feet, 7 feet, slams you down. And there's so much water moving around that the wave pushes you underground. If you've seen the show Big Wave, what feels like a minute, it's probably 8 seconds, but it feels like a minute. It's one of those things when you're kind of moving your head up, trying to bob for air, but your head's not clearing the level. So you can't breathe. Sometimes you actually get, salt water in your lungs. And so when you get pounded like that in surfing, there's a strategy that you're supposed to do. You're supposed to relax as much as possible, like completely relax. And I'm not the best at this. I don't surf massive waves. But the few times what I do is I'll tingle my toes or I'll tingle my fingers and just really try to relax. I'll think of something like a pretty landscape. This is why you're getting pounded by what feels like a building's worth of water and you can't breathe. Most people clench up, doggy paddle, swim, whatever. And that's the worst thing that you do because you're using that energy, that oxygen, where in the relaxed state, your body, your brain is so much calmer. And so what I was really, really struggling with during the summer, this is summer of 2023, was this groundless feeling. And do I just scurry, doggy paddle back to the top, which is the suboptimal strategy? Or do I just surrender and just trust that I got everything in me and it's going to lift me back up to shore and I'll be able to surface. I'll be able to catch a breath. So that was the tension that I was feeling. And look, when you have an employee, they want to know what to do. You have payroll. Like, they don't want you wiggling your toes and wiggling your fingers. They just want to know that they're going to keep their job and that they're going to get fucking paid. Right. And meanwhile, I'm like, yeah, but I knew that groundless feeling was actually where I needed to be. And if I could just stay in it as long as possible, the light on the other side of the tunnel would be really, really amazing. And here's another analogy that you might find helpful is one thing that I've found about the best investors, one thing that's really helped me with my psychology, of my money psychology, overcoming the scarcity mindset and not panicking financially over these things is I'm super comfortable watching my money, my net worth just like move around, right? I'm comfortable just watching it go down through stock market losses, through this time we've basically kept our expenses the same. Our expenses are roughly like $250 a year, right? Most of that being rent, a big chunk of that being rent. And so just watching your net worth go down, your investments go down. Oh, that was the other thing that happened. Financially, it was a fucking, death by not even a million cuts, death by a million knockouts. So business revenue tanks. So Khe's profits tank, still paying out severance. Stock market, I'm 80% invested in S&P 500. Stock market tanks. I also have some crypto, which it's not a lot, but the volatility is so high. Crypto tanks. On top of that, I'm on margin, usually 15%, making levered investments into real estate. Leverage cost of borrowing goes from 1.5% to 7%. It literally, and talk about, I think that's my superpower, is I can sit in that feeling. And look, I'm scared, but I can let the fear move through me and not panic act. And I think that's something I'm probably the most proud of. And I think that's probably my best strength. You pair that with my ability, my creative abilities. I don't know. It makes me sound too special, but the ability to stay in the game, right? There's a quote, it's Keynes. Markets can remain irrational longer than investors can remain solvent. Now, I believe that I can stay emotionally solvent for a very long time. And this was really, really the test of it. So while I was in this groundless period, this was another thing that was happening, was everyone keeps throwing things at you saying, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And I respect other people's opinions, and I have good coaches and mentors and peers, but I wasn't excited about the containers that they were offering me. So what do I mean by the containers? The containers were, someone's like, "Okay, go write a book." I do think I should write a book. I want to write a book. I want to write a book about post-achievement professionals. But I don't want to, first of all, a book doesn't make you any money for a long time. I don't want to write a book because that's out of lack of good options, right? People like start a YouTube channel. Like YouTube, I have, but starting a YouTube channel, start a podcast. I did both of those, but these things don't make me any money. They're brand awareness things, and they build connection and community, but they don't bring in money. By the way, they do bring in money if you want to join one of our coaching programs. So you can join our January cohort, radreads.co/coaching. I also have a one-on-one slot going into the year, but radreads.co/coaching. But these products don't make money. Then people are like, well, you need to position yourself better. And I went on a retreat with some incredible people, and a lot of them came back, and it was a great idea. They said, you should become the mindful money guy. And I think it's a really good idea because mindful and money, they're just such big categories. You can even talk about productivity in the mindful money as the mindful money guy. But again, I think about multi-decade creation, right? I want to do this for 20 more years. I want to be Khe Hy. I don't want to be an anything guy, right? And I think that that's hard from a marketing perspective because people don't know exactly what you stand for. But when you know, and you all listening to this know. So those containers weren't attractive to me. And it's funny because I did them, but not in the way that like balls to the wall YouTube, balls to the wall podcast. Like this podcast, I still don't have any intro music. I don't have any sponsors. I don't really edit it. It's just it's very simple, right? And it's not trying to be Tim Ferriss or trying to be Chris Williamson or Danny Miranda or any of those. I'm not trying to be a professional podcaster. This is part of the thing. So by staying in that groundlessness, the podcast has been a huge success. It's just from the connectivity with folks and the transformation and bringing people into our coaching practice. The YouTube channel has been phenomenal. There's 2 videos. I talked about the one about me leaving Wall Street, but there's the other one about how I designed my day, which we'll link to. Those 2 videos, people are just finding them. The algorithm is pointing to people, and they're just me talking like this. But again, it's finding the right people. So trusting that, yeah, I want to start a podcast, but not be a podcaster, right? That's the thing. They always say people want to be the noun, right? I want to be a YouTuber. I'm like, no, I don't want to be the noun. I just want to do the thing. I want to create some good videos. I want to create some good podcasts. I want to write. And then, you obviously still get to this question of monetization. How will you monetize? And that was tough, but a few things happen in that process is, I think people really detect vibe shifts. And I got a nice mixed slew of one-on-one coaching clients. And the one-on-one coaching clients have been mostly hedge fund executives and exited founders. And they are people, what I call post-achievement, where they have made good money, but they still need and want to work, but they could take a year or 2 off. They've hit so many achievement milestones in their lives, but something's missing. They're not at peace. They don't know what brings them aliveness. They're always scared that there's another shoe to drop. They want to be more present with their loved ones, but they're always optimizing, right? They're in a prison of their own making. And so a handful of incredible clients, again, mostly through newsletter, word of mouth. And then we did a men's coaching group, a men's group with that same avatar. A shout out to our men's group listeners. It's a group of 4 incredible men. And yeah, we talk about marriage challenges. We talk about fatherhood. We talk about legacy. We talk about our relationship with money. We talk about the treadmill that we've been on. In one conversation, we talked about swinging briefly. Don't worry, none of that has happened yet. But it was a space where, again, a very specific type of person with very specific type of challenges that, to be honest, are very unrelatable to 99.9% of the population. But everyone's problems are their problems, right? And so the men's group, that has been an amazing, and I thank all 4 of you. I know many of you are listening for supporting that initiative. And we're going to start a women's group with Marion in 2024. So that is how we turn the year around, chipping away at the book. And so if you're curious how the numbers looked, the numbers for the year were, 475,000 in revenue, top line, and it's going to look like 230,000 in profit pre-tax, and I think I make like about 140 in dividend and like yield income from different investments. So that's kind of how we break even as a family. Um, and then compared to last year, which was 645,000 in top line and 250,000 in pre-tax. So we basically matched the year. Our margins have improved. There's going to be a book that I'm starting to write this book. But again, I'm so glad that I persisted in the groundlessness and I had the support of my teammates, my colleague Marion, the teammates that left the company, and another really special individual, a gentleman by the name of Stephen Young, who is our strategic advisor, who has just given us the confidence, the advice to move forward. For those who don't know, look him up. He doesn't really have a massive internet presence, but the dude is a fucking genius and he's the kindest person. And he's been working with us as a strategic advisor to really shift our business to be more coaching oriented, more events oriented. We're going to do the stuff that makes us really fucking excited and that connects us with you all listening, right? So you're not just a podcast listener. We'll see you at a salon in New York. We'll see you at a salon in Austin. We'll see you in our men's group, in our women's group, in a coaching practice. We'll see you on social media, right? So that's what's exciting. And Marion Noble and Stephen Young have been instrumental to this. So, and so to wrap, I wanted to share this story. It's a weird little story. I've shared it on a podcast, but I think in this episode it will make more context because this is the most free I've ever felt. And don't get me wrong, it helps that we had a really strong quarter and kind of were able to finagle a decent year of profitability. But if you look at my take-home income from RadReads pre-tax over 9 years has been like $1 million. So it's about $111,000 a year, which is basically my rent. So full transparency, just so you know that this is not particularly the lifestyle that I always talk about is not fueled entirely by this business. It's fueled by a lot of other things, and some of it are prior past lives. But I always had this game in my head, right? And for some of you we all love to watch the numbers go up, whether it's bank accounts or stock investments or net worth or follower counts and so on. And I always had this idea that when I left Wall Street, I was making $1 to $2 million a year in W-2 income. Let's just keep the math easy, $1 million post-tax, after tax. So I always thought that as an entrepreneur, I would recoup that difference. It would just take time. So if you're gone for 9 years, it's recouping $9 million. And that really, I think it goes to that concept of you don't want to see the line go down, scarcity and attaching your self-worth to your net worth and all the status games, even though you don't talk, I talk about these so that you guys have transparency, but the status games and the signaling, like people know what other people make and they know how much people's houses cost and all that. And so I always had this game with myself, this idea that I would recoup that $9 million, $10 million. And as you see, I've fallen quite short of that. And the reality is, I've realized to build a business that will, recoup $9 million is you need a lot of employees, you need a lot of marketing, you might need to raise capital. It might not happen. And it's so funny how the mind works, because that little game that I just shared with you, I couldn't even tell Lisa. It doesn't make any, it's just, to her, a lot of this is funny money. But on top of that, this game is a funny game built on top of funny money that I'm playing literally with only myself, because I can't even tell other people about this. I mean, I've told a few friends and they're like, I get it. I do my version of that when I have some bad years in the stock market or what have you. But the reality was I wasn't going to recoup it. Definitely not the way RadReads is built now or the way that I want to live my life, period. Right. So I finally gave up that game. I said to myself, okay, who cares? And I know this probably sounds so fucking ridiculous. To some of you, it probably sounds so out of touch, but I know that for, I'm going to say 55% of you, you're like, I've done a version of this mental accounting, my version of it. Right. And it was this mental accounting that I was a prisoner of. And when I said I'm done playing that game. And look, a lot of therapy and coaching and psychedelics, and that's contributed to helping me let go of that story. And I'll wrap with so again, it's like the game that we're playing is it's freedom, so it's time freedom. I have time freedom. I've had time freedom for a long time, but I wasn't free. It's narrative freedom or psychological freedom, emotional freedom. I was definitely not emotionally free. And I hear that from entrepreneurs and Wall Street folks, like, I'm not free. I'm always worried. I'm always on call. I'm always thinking. My mind, I can't turn my mind off. So the question for y'all to ponder is like, where am I emotionally bound? Right? Like, bound is the opposite of free. So I want to bring up this story. I was just watching this interview with Emma Chamberlain, who is a 22-year-old YouTuber. I bet 99% of you have never heard of her. I think she's so fucking cool. She's a 22-year-old YouTuber who has been on YouTube since she was a teenager. And she did this interview. She's done very well. She got a Joe Rogan type deal on Spotify. She has her own coffee brand. She's like a Logan Paul, Jake Paul type celebrity, real celebrity. And they interviewed her, and she said that she has no idea how much money she has, and she never checks. And she goes on to say she has a financial advisor, her mom, her manager, her parents. There's a lot of checks and balances. And people are like, what the fuck? Like, that's crazy. Someone's going to steal. This is how you become broke. I think they were missing the point. What Emma had realized is she's opted out of that game. That number, because she doesn't check it, she can't peg her self-worth to it. So she is free in that regard. Obviously, she's rich. I think her net worth is rumored to be like 20 million, but she's free because that number holds no power over her. Right? So I want us all, like, what is this? What number? Right? It could be follower counts. It could be YouTube subscribers. It could be online revenue. It could be net worth. It could be the value of your house, whatever. The number, because it's that the attachment to that self-worth, right? What number holds power over you, and how might you let it go? Thanks for listening. Subscribe to the channel, subscribe to our newsletter, radreads.co, and look forward to seeing you in one of our coaching programs, radreads.co/coaching. Y'all are awesome.